Hi, this is Jerry. Welcome to Solar Insider USA. I appreciate you coming back. Hopefully you are liking these videos. Please, subscribe and hit the like button and leave comments. I haven't seen a lot of comments yet, but I'm looking forward to answering questions or having a discussion about what I'm posting. Today's video is going to be a little bit longer than normal. There are a lot of things that I want to address. We're going to talk about some of the questions that people ask once they get solar, and ask. They should ask before they get solar, or should at least know before they get solar some of these answers. I'm going to look back and forth to my screen because I'm going to be looking at some of the questions that I've kind of written down along with some answers that I have, and then I'm going to show you monitoring from an Enphase website. Every company that installs solar is going to have some type of a website where you can monitor your system, and that'll be a third-party website. It'll be through the inverter company. So whether you have a string inverter or a microinverter, that company will have a portal someplace that you can go in and monitor your system and run reports and see how your panels are doing and see if there's errors and stuff like that. So anyway, hopefully this is a enjoyable video and answers some questions and helps people understand more about solar. Let's jump into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is panels and expectations for panels, because this is one of the hardest things for people to understand and to know, and it causes a lot of issues just because of the lack of information that is given to customers. Understand, salespeople are going to give you the minimum amount of information that they want to give you because they don't want to lose the sale. They don't want to open up a door that could potentially lose them a sale. So they don't really go into it. So you have a panel that you are being sold. And if you are financing it through a loan company, through one of the standard loan companies, you're going to get tier 1 panels. If you're paying cash, you might want to be careful and make sure that they're installing tier 1 panels, because some companies might take that opportunity to kind of put a lesser panel if you're paying cash, just because they can. And if you don't know better, then you might never understand that or know that. So number one, you want to get a tier 1 panel. The second thing is to understand that just because you have a 300 watt panel or 350 watt panel, that doesn't mean, that's just kind of a designation. It depends on the number of cells in the panel, depends on a lot of factors. I'm gonna put up this graph right here to show you kind of daily production, best case scenario numbers for panels. When we talk about a 300 watt panel, a 310 watt panel, we're talking about the production of that panel during 1 hour and under ideal conditions. So a 350 watt panel ideally should produce 350 watts in 1 hour, but that would be under perfect conditions, perfect sunlight, perfect direction, perfect angle, everything. I'm going to show some slides and some video here in a minute that talks about the panel production. Understand though, just because you have a 350 watt panel does not mean that's what it's going to produce in a day or even in an hour, because there's clouds, there's shading from the roof, there's shading from trees. There are so many variables, so you just got to understand that. I've answered so many questions from customers who will call me up and say, I have 320 watt panels, but my panel's only producing X number of watts, or it's producing this. I don't understand. Understand that the designation of the panel is basically what it produces in an hour under ideal circumstances. And then this slide is the one that I have up right now. You can see that this is under ideal circumstances. This is what these panels should produce in a day. Now, is that in a summer day or is that in a winter day? Those are all things that are going to affect it. Those panels are not going to produce these numbers in the winter, especially if you're in a state like Utah where you get some snow, things like that. So understand that there are so many variables that go into what a panel will produce or won't produce. Second thing is what I just talked about, weather. If you're in an area that gets snow or a lot of rain, cloud cover, then it's going to affect your production a little bit. And I'm going to answer a couple questions on cleaning panels and weather in just a minute. But understand that as you go into winter months, number one, the days are shorter and your production is going to decrease, and you're going to have potentially days where you don't have any production at all because of snow. So understand that those things all impact, and that your system is designed to give you an offset over the course of an entire year. So that being said, let's jump into questions about solar. And I apologize, I'm going to kind of go back and forth and look at the screen that I have some of the questions written, just because I can't memorize all the questions that we have. So let's go and get started with that. So the number one question I have a lot of times is, especially as customers are going through the process of getting solar installed, it's what do I do throughout the whole process? And really, you don't have to do anything. The company will do most of the work. What will happen at some point, once your system is installed and it gets inspected by the city then will forward that information to the utility, and your utility will come out and they will swap the meter. And usually from the time you pass an inspection to when that meter is swapped is usually about 7 to 10 days. Now, in Texas, we've actually had utilities swap the meter out before we ever install the system. So it's going to vary from region and area and city and state. But typically, you're going to install your system, get an inspection within a couple days, ideally, of the system being installed, and then you will have the utility come out, swap the meter within a week or so, and you'll get what they call PTO, permission to operate. So that means your system is now able to run and produce and give the utility credits. They're set up to receive the credits. You still may have to go out and check your breakers. So I'm putting up a picture right now of the panels, things to look for, and it depends on what you have in your system. So this is just going to be kind of a perfect scenario and an ideal situation using microinverters. You will have, for example, this picture right here of the combiner box, which is where all the connections from the panels come into one spot, maybe 2-3 breakers. They're combined into one line that then goes into your main service panel. So these breakers, you need to check them. You need to make sure that if you have a cutoff switch, so in this example here that I'm showing, you will see you have a main service panel, or excuse me, you have your combiner box, you have a cutoff switch. Some utilities, some cities require a cutoff switch, some don't. It can be manual, it can be automatic, but there will be a cutoff switch. Make sure that's on. Make sure all the breakers in the combiner box are on, and then make sure the single breaker that's in your main service panel here, make sure that breaker is also on, not turned off. Once those things are all on, then you can go and start monitoring your system through your inverter website. Whatever your manufacturer inverter is, you can see your panels, and I will have a video I'm going to add to this here in a few minutes that kind of walks you through a typical monitoring system. But check all the breakers, make sure they're on. That's all you need to do. What if your system's not working perfectly? That's another question. Well, define perfectly, because it might be working. You may not understand how it's working, but you can go to the inverter website, you can go to your monitoring website and see if there's a warning. If there's a warning that says microinverter is not reporting, or whatever, some type of an error, then get a hold of your company that installed, have them come out and take a look at it. If you are getting a warning and it's something that happened right after you get bad weather, don't call the company. Just wait until the snow has cleaned off the panels or is off the panels, and then check it again and make sure. A lot of the monitoring softwares don't understand bad weather. So they can't tell when it's bad weather or good weather. And so if there's snow on your panels, it will give you a warning that says, hey, an error message is, hey, your microinverters aren't reporting. Well, yeah, it's snow on your roof. So kind of wait. or if it's been raining for a day and there's been no production, you're going to get an error. Just wait. Don't just panic and call the company if it's got bad weather. Now, if it's clear skies and blue skies and it's not reporting, then get a hold of your monitoring system. Another question: do I need to maintain my panels? Typically, no. Most panels get cleaned off enough by snow or by rain that you don't really need to do anything. There will be exceptions, and I would say that if you're in an area where there's new construction going on and there's a lot of dust in the air, maybe once, twice a year, get a hose, and all you gotta do is just spray off the panels, and that will clean them, and they'll be fine. Um, if you're in an area where you get a lot of snow, I'm not like even in Utah, we get a lot of snow, but it's usually gone off the panels in a couple days. In fact, if you're in an area that has snow, drive around and you will see that the panels tend to clear off the snow before the roof is cleared off. Um, so that's usually what's nice about the panels is they actually heat up, and as they start heating up, um, parts of the panel are visible. They get heated up from the sun, and then it melts the snow a lot quicker, and the snow sloughs off the roof faster than off the rest of your roof, and your system starts producing. The exception will be is if you're in an area like, let's say, high mountains where you get 2 feet of snow on your roof. Then you kind of have a situation where you may have to wait till the snow melts, which could be 2 or 3 months, or you might want to go and kind of brush off the snow off your panels. If you're going to do the same thing with the rest of your roof, just be careful getting up there on a ladder with a lot of snow. But that will be the exception to the rules. If you're in an area where you get, especially in the high mountains, we get that sometimes with a couple customers that it wasn't an expected thing. They never really thought about the fact that they had 2 feet of snow on their roof for 4 months. Your panels are not going to clean themselves. They're not going to slough off quickly with 2 feet of snow on the roof. So that's a situation where you may need to help it out. What happens if I have a damaged panel? So panels are designed to withstand bad weather, wind, bad weather, things like that. There will be situations where your panel will be damaged by hail. It can damage, and they're supposed to be resistant to a certain size, but we've seen some hail damage destroy panels. That's a situation where you need to get hold of the company that installed your panels, get the information for the panel manufacturer. They're the ones that actually have the warranty for the panels, and they're the ones that would have to replace the panels for you. Now they might contract with your company that installed them, but you would have to go to the third party person that installed that built your panels, the manufacturer of your panels. Same thing with your inverters. If your inverters are not working, the inverter company has a warranty. So the panels are usually warranted for 20 to 25 years. Inverters can be the same from 10 to 25 years. So if you have a warranty issue, you will need to work with that company, the manufacturer of the company, not so much your solar installer, but you can go to them for help to get the contact information. But when you get your panels installed, it's really a good idea to know who your manufacturer is and try to get a number, a website or something from that manufacturer so that you can get a hold of somebody in the event that there's a warranty issue. Again, your solar installer is not going to swap out the panels for you if it's damaged in hail or something happens to the panel. You have to work with the panel manufacturer to get the warranty information. What happens if I sell my house? This is a really good question. Typically, solar panels add a certain percentage of 10, 12, 15% of value to your home. Some customers just don't want to deal with it. So I get a couple questions. Number one, if I sell my home, can I move my panels? You can. It's not a good idea. A lot of solar companies that install, mine included, will not do that for free. Meaning that just because you want to move your panels doesn't mean we're just going to come take them off your old house, patch up that roof, and then put them on a new house for a couple of reasons. Number one, they may not fit. Number two, more than likely they're just not going to fit in the same configuration of your old house. So it's going to basically be a whole new install, and they're going to charge you a significant amount of money, several $700 per panel to do that. They might charge you the amount of a completely new install. So you need to understand that. If the customers that are buying your house don't want solar, I would try to convince them that they do want solar. and just bundle it up. And if you have a loan, just pay off the loan with the house. Um, New customers coming in can assume the loan, but they have to meet the same credit requirements as you did to buy the solar. And so while they might qualify to buy the home, they may not qualify to purchase solar. So it's easier just to add the extra amount to pay off the loan into the home loan. And then once you close on the house, um, pay off the loan. And then you can work with your solar company to transfer the name of the customer from you to the new homeowner on their monitoring website, so then they can start monitoring their panels as well. To me, typically, I would not try to move my panels to another house, and I would not try to have them assume the loan. I would just roll it up into the cost of the house, add a little extra cost of the house to cover the panels, and then pay it off. That's the easiest way. It's the simplest way. And then moving, if you really like solar and you want to continue it, when you move into your new house, just get a whole new system. That's the easiest, cheapest way to do it. Another question we get a lot is, I need to get part of my roof replaced or get my entire roof replaced. Most solar companies are going to charge you a fee to remove and reinstall the panels, just because for them it's basically a new install. It takes 2 days. It might take a week in between to get the roofing company in there. Just understand, and if you're looking at putting solar in your roof, talk to your solar company about that. And if you can, get it in your contract that says, hey, if I have to re-roof my house, you'll remove and reinstall my panels for free. If you get in your contract that says they'll do that, great, good for you, and you can save money that way. Most companies are going to charge you between $175 to $250 a panel to remove and reinstall. So you can be looking at $5,000 or $6,000 cost to remove and reinstall panels. So if it's something where you think you're going to do that in the future, you might want to look at actually getting your roof redone before you actually install the solar, so you don't have to worry about it. You get that roof redone, and now your roof is good for 20 years. Your panels are good for 20 years. Hey, you don't have to worry about it. What if I get a utility bill? This is one that I talked about this before in other videos. You're always going to have a utility bill. Most solar companies are not going to reimburse you just because you get a utility bill. There are some things you can do. You need to, number one, check and make sure you're not over consuming. A lot of people, without knowing it, actually start using more solar or more energy than they did before. And then they get a bill and they're all shocked. You're always going to get a bill. You're always going to have at least an $8 or $9, $10 bill from a connection fee. The utilities are going to charge you for having solar. They've convinced legislators that you have to pay your fair share for grid maintenance. So they're always going to have a bill. But double check and make sure you're watching your production, your consumption, and that you're not just, hey, I'm just now leaving all my lights on because I have solar and I got free energy. It's really not free. You've switched your payment to somebody else. But you're always going to get a bill. So be prepared for that and understand that and watch it and understand what your consumption is and what you're using and what your lifestyle is, and understand that a lot of times in 90% of the cases where I've had customers upset because their bill has increased, it's because they've increased their consumption flat out. That's it. Now, if you haven't checked your monitoring software for a little while and you do get a bill, then check it, because it's possible that your system has gone down and there's been an issue, it's not reporting, and then you need to get a hold of your company to check your system. So those are some of the main questions that people have asked me and I've dealt with in the past. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about them. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about monitoring software and kind of how you monitor and what to look for. All right, let's talk monitoring your system. Once you have permission to operate, or PTO, you should check in on the website for your inverters
every day, every couple of days, just to make sure your system is monitoring. You probably have some type of a alert system set up to tell you if your system is having issues. I'm going to use the Enphase website as my example. Majority of our customers have Enphase inverters. We have used some Hoy Miles and some AP systems. Each of those companies have similar monitoring capabilities. So you can see pretty much the same thing and run reports and do what I'm going to do with Enphase. This is just the one that we have the majority of our customers with. So I'm going to go with this. It's really important for you to go in and understand how to do this, how to run reports, things like that. So here in this situation here, we have a customer. You can see they have a single array, 15 panels. This is actually probably broken down into 2 different circuits, because usually there's a limit to how many panels can be on one circuit, but this is in a single array. Here's another example of a customer who has a more complex roof system. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 arrays. They might actually have 5 or 6 circuits, meaning that some of these panels will be on one, like these panels might be on one breaker, these panels might be on another breaker, these might be on one, and then these might be on 2. It just depends on capacity. I believe these were 310 watt panels. Things that you want to look for when you sign into your system. So for example, in this system right here, they're having their microinverters not reporting. It means there's an issue with their microinverters. You can see that there's no data here on the panels. So if your system shows some type of an error and you're not seeing any information on the panels, then you need to get a hold of your solar company and get a technician out there to take a look at it. This means there's something wrong. Now there are things that you can do to troubleshoot. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. The other thing that's important to look at is these are 310 watt panels. Look at the production here: 873 kilowatt, or 873 watt hours, 862, 756. So the thing to remember, and this drives me crazy with customers because it's something that's not explained to them very well. These are all the same panels, all the panels in this array, and all the panels in this array, and all the panels on pretty much every customer are the same panels. They're the same size. So 310, 320, 350 watt panels, whatever it is that they were sold, they're all the same. And yet, if you look at it, you see that there is a difference in production. A lot of customers will say, why? I've got a panel that only did 503 watt hours. What's wrong with that panel? There's nothing wrong with that panel. There could be shading. There could be the location of it is just on the corner. More likely, this has some shading. You have to understand, even in an ideal situation, all these panels will not produce the same amount of watt hours each day. Just because you have its production issues. One panel might have been made a little bit better than the other. It could just be the location. It could just be getting a little bit better sunlight here for 873 versus 861. Now let's look at this array. There's a big drastic difference in some of the panels. So this produced 1.26 kilowatt hours. This produced 748 watt hours. So this produced 71. This was one day. So they could have snow on these panels right now. It could be just shading issues with these panels. A lot of times we will install panels in order to hit a certain production level, and we know that there's going to be shading, and we know that some of these panels will not produce a lot, so there's extra panels put in there to compensate for the fact that they need a certain amount of production, but they're not going to get it because in this case, this customer's roof was packed with panels and there just was no more room and no other place to put the panels. It was better. So we added panels knowing that some of them were going to produce a little bit less. More likely, these are ones that actually have snow. And that's a good point to understand, is that they might have snow on part of the panels. If you get a warning that says, hey, your microinverters are not producing, or your system's not producing, and it just snowed, just ignore it. Wait till it's sunny and some of the snow has moved off your panel, and then if it's still showing a production issue, then get a hold of your company. So these are some things to look at here. This is really critical to understand. Your panels are not going to produce the same amount of energy. Even down here where you got this at the bottom, you got a 1.626 kilowatt hours, 1.24, 1.23, 1.22. you have a wide variety of production for the day. Let's check the past 7 days. So you can get, I see again, very few of these panels produce the exact same amount. You had 2 or 3 that produced one amount. You had one that produced really high, and then other ones that were producing lower, and some that produced a lot lower, because this is probably a south-facing roof, and this might be a west-facing roof or an east-facing roof section for whatever reason. It's critical to understand that. So let's go back in this one here. Again, you can run the report and say, okay, in this case, you can see the past 7 days. Again, you can see the difference in production. With Enphase, you can do it as a graph. Kind of shows you the up and down. You can see when the sun goes down. You can do a custom range. And again, Hoy Miles and AP systems all have the same capability. It's just a little bit different layout. So, you can do January 1 to today and see production every day. You can see this produce, the system produced 10,000 kilowatt hours, 9,000, 9,000, 582. So it probably had maybe some snow or rain or some bad weather. Things like that happen. So this just kind of shows you how you can navigate through your system. You can do graphs, you can do reports. You can run a report, again, from one day to a different day. Let's say for a month, you can see the daily. It's the same report. It's just showing a different interface. It just shows you something different. So again, it behooves you to understand, hey, how does my system work, and how does my monitoring work? And go into your monitoring program, your website, whether it's Enphase, Hoy Miles, AP systems, or whatever. Even microinverters, if you go, or string inverter system, will have some capability like this to run these type of reports, so that you can see the individual production, you can see the weekly, monthly, yearly. So here you can see a year-to-date production. You can play around with it and kind of get to know your system and understand the capabilities of your monitoring website, so that you can stay on top of your system. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no solar company, or very few solar companies out there, they're going to monitor your stuff 24 hours a day. I don't care what they say. They're not going to do it. They just don't have the manpower to do it. They're going to wait until you get an error and call them up before they do anything. So I've seen so many people who their system will go down for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks, and they won't know it because they haven't been checking. And then they get a bill and they're surprised. So make sure you're checking this at least once a week. I would check it every 3 or 4 days, but at least once a week to make sure your system is producing.
So real quickly here, I'm going to show you a couple screenshots of the AP systems monitoring system. You can see these slides here. This is very similar to the Enphase. You can see the individual panels. You can see daily production. You can run reports for daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you want to. And it's very similar to the Enphase, so it just takes a little bit of practice to kind of learn how to use the AP Systems website. Here are a couple screenshots of the Hoy Miles monitoring system. It's not as good as the Enphase or AP Systems, but it's not bad. It's getting better. Again, you can see the individual layout of all your panels. You can see the production of the panels, and you can run reports. So you can run weekly, monthly reports to compare it and do calculations with your bills. So just kind of some information to see.